It'd be really weird if people like anticipated this. I think I told one person this was happening beyond the people who were aware. So it'd be really weird if like
It
there's
was like announced,
yeah,
but there wasn't a time for it.
there was no time for it, right? So I think I told one person the general time, which was still like 30 minutes different than what I told them. It's like right now. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Regardless, it's recorded and it'll be up, so we can just post it after that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait like just a second in case we have little people that are coming in.
Yeah. Unexpected stream. So it might take people a little bit.
There's Kato. Kato's jumped in right away. Kato, I have no words for how sorry I am for the loss of your player, truthfully. But I just thought I should say that now, since I don't think I've talked to you about it since it happened. Just a wild occurrence. We are a few moments away from... By the way, what this is, before we even get into anything else, is a preseason stream that is going to like end up going over some stuff that is going to happen in the next season. So we're going to talk about why we're doing what we're doing in like 1 second, but just for the 6 people right here. Oh, hello. Hi. Oh, Vega. Him the guy won. Hit it with the holy moly, so handsome. And then prime sub. All I gotta do is show my face to get a sub? What the hell? I should have been doing this way earlier, dude.
Let's see. Use prime. Use sub.
You're subbing right now? Oh, right, you're gonna. Murloc Mancer, do not read ahead. I'm trading. Woohoo! Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, what the? Okay, you got me.
It's too early in the day.
You got me. Talk 10, right? You get to watch it this time. Never else you get to watch this, Sammy. This is for you, Sammy. Praetorian, you want to count me from 10?
I have like a mysterious substance.
What does that mean? Mysterious substance?
Water.
Oh. I'll take a Buggy Stuggy. That mixed drink is going to feel real weird in a couple minutes, I think. This is probably something I really should have my head more for than... oh, no. Gyps Games, what are we... How long until the voice clips I sent you get made into a thing, and do you need any help? Great question. I refuse to give you an answer on live stream because then it's recorded. So that's my honest answer. That's my honest answer. And my Human Disguise is good. The skin is a little stretchy, but it's not bad. Overall, it's a good disguise. I think we have enough of a base of people that we can fire off, Praetorian. I think we're ready to go. Do you want me to introduce what we're doing and why we're doing it before you fire into a little more?
That's the very next slide.
Oh my god, it is the next slide. Why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this?
What the heck is it, right?
Well, I suppose. Hello, everyone. I'm Praetorian, if you don't know who I am, and this is Buggle, if you don't know who Buggle is. Welcome. Wait, hold on. I need to figure out how my screens are.
Okay. This is like an off-season update for you guys that are watching this right now.
Yeah, so I think like somewhat inspired by Riot's, like, I don't know, how often do they do that?
The devlog stuff?
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Like, you know, we're just like the low budget version of that. Really, really at our roots of what we're doing here. And so, you know, every once in a while they send out some thoughts, both in like video and text form of things that are happening and things that they're implementing. And so we thought, you know, this would be a good excuse to do the same. After every season of the LBLCS, and now we've completed 14 seasons of the LBLCS, we send out a feedback form to all captains and all players who participated in the last season. And we really rely on responses to the feedback form to help guide what we're doing in the future. And so sometimes we'll just ask for some general feedback and how the experience has been. And then also we put some targeted questions about maybe things we implemented in the most recent season or things that we're thinking about implementing in the future, just to see, to gauge what people are thinking. And we take the time every offseason and we read through every single response that gets submitted. And often there are, close to 100 or upwards of 100 responses. And so we really do take the time to read through what everyone's written.
But we
and
don't.
that input.
We don't always share what we've decided or read from all of those things, and this is kind of that, right? Like, this is like us being like, oh,
Right.
hey, we actually did read all of those things, just so you guys are aware, and we promise,
Yeah.
and here's our thoughts.
Yeah, we always read through them, and we always use it to influence, what we're influencing. And then we realize that, like, wait, for all the people who filled out the feedback form, they have, no kind of mechanism to know
right.
that we do that. So, this will be the start of, we might post a couple more of these as our seasons move on and like things that we're doing. And we thought it was a good way to interact with all of you. So,
yeah, we're going to get just right into it too.
Yeah. So last season 14 of the LBLCS, and this is kind of crazy. It's been over 5 years of real time and 14 seasons. Largest overhaul of the LBLCS format in a while. And so for all of these sort of points, we're going to discuss the how things worked in the last season, explain the reason why those things were put in place before last season, go over the feedback we received about it, and then explain how we're changing or not changing things for the upcoming season. It won't cover everything, but we'll do it again in the future, and there'll be some time for some questions at the end. So the first thing we should talk about is maximum point caps. And so this was one of the biggest changes to the LBLCS format from last season.
Right.
The idea was to return to the format that the LBLCS had from like seasons 1 through 7 or 8. So I know a lot of people have not, we're not here in LBLCS season 8. It was a long time ago at this point. But for the large first half of the LBLCS, the idea of the league, actually, Buggle, you founded the league, so
True.
So what was the original like sort of genesis of what the league was supposed to be?
The idea was to allow teams of like different ranks. So, like, you might have like your plat friend and your bronze friend, have them be able to figure out a way where they can play together in a system that makes sense. So like a few lower ranked players could balance out a higher ranked player, and then you're able to all play together. Slowly in the course of like, once we got to like seasons 9, 10, 11, 12, it became more and more strict with the range of players you could really have. And so you saw like last season, season 14, the expansion of like, you can actually just play with anybody and we're going to figure it out, which had some positives and some negatives. And you guys gave really good feedback regarding that stuff too. And Praetorian's going to go into really what we decided to reinstitute into some things so that you guys still can do that fun play with your friends bit, but not to the extremities still to the extremities, but not to the lopsided unfairness that we did see in the last season.
Right. So before, as we got stricter with, what kind of teams could play in what divisions, we had many teams composed of friend groups in real life or friend groups that they formed through the LBLCS that had a couple higher ranked players and a couple lower ranked players. And their choice was either to not play together as a group or play in a division that's way higher than they probably should have been because they had one high ranked player. But so last season we opened things up a little bit. We found that the skill disparity between teams within each division was a little wider than we wanted it to be. And so we did achieve the thought of like a lot of groups of friends came back that were forced out of the LBLCS many seasons ago. But the gap between the highest point player in a division and the lowest was rather large. All that being said, we did see lower pot teams have lots of successes against higher pot teams.
Mm-hmm.
We have like a lot of internal statistics about this. It worked really well in some divisions. Did not work as well as we wanted in other divisions, like financial. And just a reminder before we start talking about this more is that ranks and points are really not everything when it comes to like evaluating how well you play and how well you play with a team. That being said, we are reinstituting a maximum point cap for individual players within each division. And so when the rules are released,
very soon,
is soon. Keep your eyes peeled. If a team has like 1 diamond player and 7 gold players, they're still going to apply to the LBLCS as a whole, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. We'll still sort people into divisions, but this team with 1 diamond player and 7 gold players knows that we won't place them in economy, which is the lowest average point division, even if maybe their average points would have placed them into economy.
Right.
And so this should keep players feeling that there aren't just like a few players in the division that are steamrolling them, even if the rest of their team is not dominating. That being said, we will not have a maximum point cap for teams in a division. So this was the really strict aspect of the LBLCS that we had between seasons 7 and 13. One of the things that people really expressed in the feedback forum is that they loved about the most recent season was the ability to go back to playing with their friends, and also the inability for organizations to try and manipulate or min-max their roster construction just to win a division. And so, in the past, like having a set cap on a team allowed certain enterprising captains to design rosters for divisions, and that just kind of ruins the environment that we try and foster here at the LBLCS. That all being said, this will not affect how teams apply to the LBLCS. You will still, like last season, apply to the league as a whole. We're not going to know what the divisions look like until we're going to take a look at the full distribution of accepted teams. But what it does do is it sets some reasonable expectations so you can know what you will and will not play against. So you can rest assured that
if you're applying with a team that you're like, wow, I'm pretty sure we're economy, we're very low, all of us very low, you can rest in your heart, like, okay, we're not going to play any like super high diamond players, something crazy like that. So like there is still, yes, a maximum point value for any one individual in each division, but no, there's not a hard cap on teams like cumulative points in each division, because we can't know that until we have a look at the entire set of teams that we've accepted from those applications. That's when we can sort people into those good specific leagues that make sense for them. And another thing that we're going to attempt to do, obviously we can't do it because we don't have all the data to do it, but we're going to try to reduce the spread in each division. We saw some bigger point spreads, like Praetor was talking about in financial, for example, where we had the largest point spread from how good the bottom 4 teams were to the highest pot 1 teams. We're just going to reduce that number a little bit so we can maybe have some smaller leagues, maybe not, depends on what people apply with, but just so that the discrepancy between the bottom team and the top team are not so high.
Right. So it's not a big drastic change, but it should hit a couple of the edge cases that we saw. Okay. Similar to that, should teams apply to specific divisions, or do you apply to the LBLCS generally? And so having teams apply to the LBLCS as a whole was something that people really said they loved in the feedback forum. And so there's an overwhelming sort of vote on the feedback forum that we keep this. And this was key to our new format working. It allows teams to form around groups of friends without doing like super complicated math and thinking about whether a team is eligible to apply for a certain division or not. There's a lot of times in the past where teams of long-standing LBLCS members would apply to a division. They thought they were eligible and then be told sort of after the fact by LBLCS staff that they weren't actually eligible. And that was like super frustrating to a lot of people. And so it'll work similarly. We think it went really well. You will apply to the LBLCS with whoever you'd like to play with, and we'll divide teams into divisions of similar skill.
And then we kind of went from there. Should each division be split into groups?
Yeah. So some players loved this in the past.
Right.
Some players also loved one unified standings for divisions like we did last season. Players who love groups say that they felt closer to the teams in their group. They followed their group's games. They knew their group's players. Players who liked the unified standings said they enjoyed the race for the playoffs against all of the teams in the division. And that sometimes teams would get trapped in sort of like a group of death. Sort of, we used to do random draws for our groups and divisions. And so sometimes like a lot of the really good teams in a division would end up in one group. And so a team that might have missed playoffs in Group A felt that maybe they could have made playoffs if they were only in Group B.
Right.
But that being said, we had a couple 24 team divisions last season. We had some 32 team divisions in previous seasons. They get a little unwieldy for us to manage, and also unwieldy for a lot of players to follow the storylines within their division. So that being said, we're going to reintroduce groups to divisions while still keeping the pot system that we use to ensure that each group is more balanced than the groups used to be.
Right.
So this means you'll go back to playing every team in your group, and you also play maybe a match or two against a team in another group to keep balanced schedule. So let's go through an example here.
And I'm showing them
let's
right
say-
now the pot A, pot
Yeah.
B, pot C, pot D thing, so they can see it, right? This is based as if it was a 16-team group that they can see in front of them for teams in pot A, 4 in B, 4 in C, and 4 in D. And like Praetorian is saying, right, if you're split into that, we're going to essentially split it into those two groups, Group A and Group B, and that is now what I'm now presenting to them, Praetorian, so you can take it over from there.
Yeah, so these 16 teams will be divided, into two groups, but just like before. But this time, we're ensuring that there's an equal number of teams from each pot in each group. So you won't have a situation before where a random draw would happen and maybe all 4 teams in pot A would end up in the same group, and the 5th team in that division would find it very hard. And so it's going to look like this. So let's say you're team 1. You're going to play 7 matches against each of the other teams in your division. In your group. You'll play team 2. You'll play team 5 and 6, 9 and 10, and 11 and 12. And you might say, like, okay, if you're team 1, that means you only played one other pot A team. And so you'll play the 7 teams in your group and also one match against the other group to ensure that it's balanced. So
and
like
it will
team
be
1
equal pot. So team 1 might play team 3, team 2 might play team 4, but it'll be equal pot. And yes, chat, clearly there is a clerical error inside of this specific graphic. Get along with yourselves. Team 13 and team 14 are indeed missing. But imagine that they were in that pot 4 section, and that is what those yellow 11 and 12 mean, just so you're aware.
Oh, there's 2 11s and 12s. Okay. I'm going to fix that before things go out. And so this should ensure that we have the best of both worlds, sort of. We keep the balanced schedules that people liked about this last season. And we also are bringing back some of the smaller groups for a greater sense of community that people really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think the big
43 month straight sub. That's his 57th month.
Ruffian's crazy. The big takeaway too, this is like, the equality, quote unquote, as much as you can have in a league like this, that you guys liked from the last season, where, okay, I'm playing like the equivalent schedule of like the strengths in each team as to the best of the ability of sorting these out. I'm playing 2 from pot A, 2 from pot B, 2 from pot C, 2 from pot D, was good, but you missed the group community, and we're bringing back your community while keeping balanced schedules. That does mean there's that one crossover week like Praetorian is talking about, so we will have more information on that as well soon. But the other thing too is like everything that is changing or staying the same or being slightly modified is all stuff that was voted on in that end season stuff. So like you voted for everything that we have showed you so far. We're just going with majority votes. And that actually brings us to the next thing, which should the LBLCS have a minimum player limit that is higher than 5? And
so
go ahead.
Simply, like, yes. In many LBLCS seasons in the past, there have been all sorts of roster limits. Sometimes, we've required a minimum of 6. Sometimes we've allowed all the way up to 12. In the last season, we made every roster have 8. So the thinking for this, and teams ask us all the time when they're applying, like, why? I have 4 other friends, a team of 5. That's how many you need to play League of Legends.
Right.
And why do you require us of more than 5? And so the crux of the issue is that many teams run into scheduling issues mid-season. The LBLCS does not have a set day that you play games on. And so by setting a minimum higher than 5, we ensure that every roster has a few substitutes that can play if needed.
Yeah.
On the other side of things, we realized in the past that allowing rosters to go all the way up to 12 or even higher sometimes has really stressed our capacity to keep up with all the roster changes that get made, additions in the mid-season. And that's like that felt like a burden for us. But we do understand that last season for a couple of teams, and really
8 was too much for the minimum. That's what was told us. That's what we noticed. That's what we saw. But we still need the room for there to be subs. So we're just reducing, right? We're setting that minimum to a roster size of 7, but increasing the maximum to 10. We're not locking it. You have to have 8, reduced to 7, max to 10. And then roster locking is returning at a specific date, which Praetorian is going to get into a little bit.
Right. So allowing people to go back up to 10 should allow some more flexibility for teams who want some more options on their roster. without having to drop someone already on their roster. But to ensure the LBLCS staff can handle all of the roster changes that happen during the season, especially leading up to the playoffs, we're going to reinstitute the roster lock. This will happen sometime towards the end of the regular season in the weeks 5 to 7 range. Note from the previous topic that teams will be playing 8 matches instead of 7. So the season is going to be 1 week longer. So there'll be a pre-announced date, and after that date, no more roster additions will be able to happen. It'll be deep enough into the season, so teams will certainly know how their season is going, what their roster needs are, but it also will allow us to prepare to administer the playoffs without overload. It will mean that teams need to enter the end of the regular season with substitutes who are actually willing to play games.
Yeah.
Sometimes people carry people on their roster who they just have to meet the minimum. So we're hoping that by reducing the thresholds for the minimum, you will actually carry people on your team that can play games. And so after a certain point in the regular season, you won't be able to add more players. So if you're a playoff team, you'll need to go into the playoffs with a good set of people set.
And just to touch on that really quick too, that is always like a area of like high contention, because it's when you're the most passionate, it's when you care the most about how the game's going to go. It's when you really want to play with as many people as you can. Like, oh, we really want our starting 5. We feel like we're so strong with that specific thing, and it's a good time to like literally take a step back, be like, before these rosters lock, if we lost 2 of our players right now, who would be 2 really great, wonderful people that we love to play with, that we will have a good time with playing regardless of the result. And when you're in the moment of scheduling those playoffs, just take a breath, take your time scheduling them, and like really consider all the options. If this is a really important thing to you and it's really passionate, can you move things around so that you can create time to play with the roster you want instead of trying to force the other team to do it? That's always a sticky, weird issue to try to navigate, especially just socially. Like, you very much in-group, out-group people very quickly. So, that's something to think about, like, especially with the roster locking happening pretty mid-season, right? We're saying like weeks like 5 to 7 range, and we'll announce it exact day that it's going to be and everything. We'll give you like a good warning, right? And that may be a good time to like really look at everything. And also it's a good time to mention that we are going to do a free agent showcase soon too. Yeah. So like, especially like orgs that are always returning and stuff, take a look at those stuff, and it might be a way that you can get better mid-season, which is what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, this is if you've played in the LBLCS before, you'll know this isn't a new thing. Last season was the first season in a long time that there was no roster lock. Mm-hmm. Okay, so to the next thing.
Oh wait, Ruffian has a new rule of season 15. It's against the rules to beat me in a game. Oh, other new weird thing. Ruffian's on my team now. Based on that new rule, I've demanded that Ruffian's on my team. So illegal to beat me or Ruffian in a. Do you want in Praetorian on this team?
I would love to. Okay. I do not have League of Legends installed on my computer.
You don't need it. No one's allowed to beat us. We're good.
Oh, that's fair. Okay. Last season, for the first time, we as part of the new format, teams that were in lower pots had no opportunity to make their team better mid-season due to a rule that required a new roster addition to be of equal point value or lower than the player that they were replacing on a roster. And we heard you pretty loud and clear. That felt super frustrating to many teams who felt trapped where they are or where they were. And so we'll start just like for the original rationale for what the system was last season. We were trying to avoid teams trying to enter LBLCS with a lower point roster on purpose and then intentionally replacing all of their players with much higher pointed players. Now, obviously, this didn't affect a ton of people, but there are, as much as the LBLCS tries to be a more casual environment than a lot of other amateur leagues, we don't have a prize pool, we don't have an entry fee. There are still people who really just, they just try to, they just want to win.
It's okay to want to win.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But we are trying to avoid, teams entering with a lower point roster and then just replacing all their players in like week 1. And so this is still a scenario we're trying to avoid. But clearly the restriction last season had some unintended consequences. And so our solution for this season was we're going to institute some form of sliding scale where, teams can increase their evaluated point total of like their top 5 players by a little bit as the season goes on. But lower pot teams will be able to increase that total by more than higher pot teams. And so the hope is that this accomplishes several things, right? We're going to allow teams to have some more flexibility to improve during the season. We're trying to keep our schedules reasonably balanced in our pot system, even if teams are making roster changes midseason. And this will still prevent a team from simply replacing their entire roster once they understand where they are, just to min-max their roster midseason. There will be, obviously much more flexibility than last season because there was no flexibility. But it won't be completely uncapped.
Right. Pot 4 has a greater advantage not a greater range, but a greater ability to increase slightly more versus a pot 2 team can only maybe increase very slightly. Just so that there is still balance, but there's also, we did see it, and we hope that the roster changes affect this too, like from 7 to 10 now instead of just locked at 8. But we did see some teams just struggle, especially teams that were newer or didn't have their like foothold in the community to really know everybody and be like, oh, who can we bring in now that we've lost somebody mid-season? So hopefully this also helps teams like, oh, actually we're having some just social issues inside of our team. We want to replace somebody. Okay, well, this gives you a little bit more leeway to just have a wider range of people to select from. And that's really the end goal.
Yeah. And obviously a lot of this we'll have a framework for when the rules are announced soon. But the exact values of the sliding scale cannot be known until all the teams have applied,
right.
All the teams have been accepted, and we go through everything because we just don't know what the divisions are going to look like yet. So we're not going to pigeonhole ourselves into coming up with a
right. It depends on the min-max point totals from pot 4 to pot 1 and from pot 4 to pot 3 and pot 3 to pot 2 and there's the entirety of it. So just a fair sliding scale. And speaking about being fair, Praetorian, we're going to move to the next thing, which I think a lot of people in chat are going to like. I know that you maybe not as much, but it was voted on and it did pass. So
yeah.
Fire off.
The Fearless draft format is new to League of Legends. It has been implemented at the pro play level, and many of our fellow amateur leagues in the scene have also implemented, and it's brought so much excitement and changes to drafting strategy and roster construction. We're currently testing out the implementation of Fearless, in some of our past off-season events.
Right.
We're super enthusiastic about this draft format, like everyone else is too, but we're also cognizant of all of the players in our community who don't play lots of champions. The LBLCS operates best of 3 match format in the regular season, meaning at most your series can go 3 games.
Right.
But a lot of them go 2 games. And so we do understand that Fearless may impose some more restrictions on players with smaller champion pools. And it certainly does that in long series. But we feel that in a best of 3 match format with a maximum of 3 games, asking players to have a champion pool of between 5 and 10 champions that we feel like they can play at a reasonable level is not too much of a burden to ask. When weighing how much enthusiasm there is behind the draft format, obviously in other leagues who are playing best of 5 matches or sometimes even longer, like that can be like super restrictive on your champion pool.
It could also increase the value of using substitutes effectively too, though, and it can make you think about how to how do I want to go into this game? What do we want to do? Let's really think about it and have a fun time battling these guys. So a little bit of a game of wit before we play the game of smashing our fingers on a keyboard. So yeah, it is not going to be Iron Man Fearless though, and that's something that's important to know.
Oh.
And then Praetorian's going to go in 1 second about how we're going to keep track of this. And I know Ruffian is in chat, so hopefully there's a little bit of braggadocious stuff going on there. But yeah, I mean. This is
just to clarify,
well.
This is regular Fearless.
Right.
Champions that are picked will not be able to be picked in future games, but it's not going to be that champions that are banned are not allowed to be picked in future games. So, and you may be wondering as a captain, how do I keep track of all of this? I don't want to accidentally draft a champion that is not able to be drafted in game 3 because of Fearless. Well, the LBLCS drafting tool has it all built in already. So a huge shout out to our development team who have been working super hard, and a lot of you used the LBLCS drafting tool in last season for your matches, but now there is a built-in Fearless draft capability to use. You won't have to make a mistake, you won't have to keep track of it, and there's no chance to make a mistake. You will not be able to select the champion that you can't use. And so draft.lowbudgetlcs.com. if you're interested. And of course, like, use this for your other games. And it's a great website. The dev team has put in so much work
They're
behind
incredible.
it.
They are so freaking fun and good at what they do. And I don't ever click on their chat anymore. I clicked on their chat for a while, maybe like a year or so when they were doing things. But it's such a chaotic, insane place that I get nervous even to read what they're typing to each other. But they are just incredible, amazing people, and I love them to death.
Yeah, so check that out. It's a great thing that we're happy to present to people. Okay. This will be a slight minor change to things that happen mid-season when teams try to add players. We've heard you in past seasons. Sometimes by the time that teams add a player during the season, the evaluation range that we used before the season started is a little outdated, and these players are much higher ranked. So, before every season, there's a period in which our roster verification team spends a lot of time vetting every single player and assigning them a point value. And oftentimes we'll have we'll use your peak rank between this date and this date. But the ending date always ends as we're doing roster verification.
Right.
We can't see into the future. And this is fine. This is still what we're going to do for, 90% of the players that play in the LBLCS.
Right.
But we're just talking about players who get added by teams during the LBLCS season. We're just going to extend the evaluation range a little bit, all the way up until the date the team requested to add them. So let's use an example. This season, we're going to be conducting our preseason roster verification in August. And, we'll be using
data,
a peak rank range from, a time in the past until August, because that's what we can do. So let's say, I mean, I don't play League anymore, but let's say a player peaked Emerald 3 this month, maybe right now. And so, if they were to join a team before the season started and the team got accepted into the LBLCS, we'd probably evaluate them as having peaked Emerald 3 in July, because that's, we're doing this in August. But let's say this player was added
mid-season.
Let's say toward the end of the regular season. So mid-October, they could have made a push for diamonds in September and gotten all the way up to diamond 3. But an LBLCS team in the past could have added them towards the end of the regular season in October at Emerald 3 points. And so under this minor change, we'll just evaluate that player using a time period that does stretch until teams request to add them. So really, this doesn't affect that many people.
And it really only affects new players that are coming into the league. It's not necessarily affecting players that are playing on a team. Maybe they get dropped week 1, get picked up week 2. It's not really working in that manner metric. However, I will say a lot of this specific change and a couple of the other ones, a lot of this stuff was also just stuff you guys wrote about. You wrote this in. You're like, hey, here's an issue I'm noticing we're having inside of this league. I have a possible proposed solution, and this is what I really liked with a lot of the feedback forms that you guys gave, is you guys wrote down an issue or a problem and then immediately offered a possible solution. And although all the possible solutions didn't really work out, they gave us a good foundation for what to build off of. So yes, Fearless is in, by the way, for the comment. We'll
release all of these notes for people who haven't been able to tune into the stream.
Yeah. And it'll be written too. So if you had trouble following what Praetorian was just saying, essentially, somebody that is not joined in the initial I wrote that I get so distracted, ADHD. I wrote that I want Buggo to cast live from the moon. Where is that? That's coming, Vega. That's coming. The moon cast is coming. If you have trouble following us, it's because I also have no attention span. But we're gonna write it all down. We're gonna put it out. And as Praetorian has been constantly alluding to, very soon, the rules, very soon, which we know you guys totally read a bunch of. But we just wanted to highlight a bunch of these changes today. And these are the main things we wanted to discuss.
And just a lot of these things, especially when we're trying new things, it's not like Buggle and I sit around the table and we're like, how do we ruin people's experiences? We try to implement.
That's me alone at the table. I do that alone without anyone.
some fun new things, and sometimes it has some consequences that we don't think about. It's we try and think of a lot of things, and other people on the staff team can attest that I spend so much time trying to think through all of the hypotheticals, but you're not going to hit everything. And so sometimes things are pain points or frustration points during a season, and we'll try and address it as soon as we can moving forward. So let's talk about timeline a little bit. Those of you who saw the announcement, the free agent showcase is making a return after several seasons. That will take place this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. For those of you who have already signed up, and I know I've been getting a couple messages about this, you didn't miss anything. Technically, the sign up is open for another day, but we're going to try and formulate people into rough groupings of teams, and so that'll be on Sunday. We're really excited to show that. Signups and rules will come out very soon. Some general dates of the season, since we have not talked about this a lot yet. The regular season is going to stretch from the end of August to the end of October. It is a 9-week regular season, 8 matches and a makeup week. So one more week than some past LBLCS seasons for stuff we already talked about before. And then the playoffs will be the end of October to the end of November. But finals week will be the week before Thanksgiving week, so to not come up against the holidays, and obviously that will only affect a couple teams. So it'll run through most of the fall. Right. We're super excited.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to pepper in or add before we go to that last section?
I mean, those are the main things that we want to discuss today, because those, a lot of the things, there's so much written into the feedback form, and again, as we said at the beginning, we do read all of them, and we really appreciate your thoughts. We hope that this was helpful, at least to not understand, we realize that every season we release rules and people read the rules and they see the changes. But we wanted to give some insight into some of the things that we think about when we incorporate your feedback and think about what we're doing with feedback to change the rules. This wasn't all encompassing. There will be more changes that you'll have to read to get, but these were the big things that came up often by a lot of people in the feedback forum, and some of the ways that they suggested we hit on them. And so now I think we have a couple minutes if there are any other just general questions about the LBLCS or clarifying questions about things we talked about today, or really anything else. Yeah, I mean, it's a little early to ask Buggle to start drinking more, but
yeah, it is. I mean, I'm halfway through that huge thing. It's how many ounces is this? 24. It's only 24. The other thing too, is we, there's a lot of yes or no's or this or that specifically on the feedback form, but there's also this huge section where you write in. So not only did we take the majorities of all the votes for how to go about the rules going, but we also looked at if someone wrote a really detailed or serious response, we took it as seriously as we could, right? And we made those possible adjustments to those certain parts of the game. And here come the questions, Prey.
Java, for a certain captain asking how my climb is going, just be rest assured I will not be subject to the intensive climbing mid-season.
Martin, how many teams will be accepted? God, Praetor, listen, we got 147 last year. 147 applications. And we took 80 teams instead of 72, which was our original plan, to take 72, but we took 80 because we want to take more than half of the teams that applied. It is a drastic number of teams that usually apply. Realistically, I think we have a really good system where we can take a good number of teams, but it's a lot of work behind the shelves too. And right now our goal is to take 80. That can change depending on submissions and depending on how many people are still going to help out next season. Somewhere in the ballpark of 80 though is your answer.
Yes, Sammy, 8-week season. In the case that things are, as we said, if there's 8 teams in a group, then that means you'll be playing 7 matches in your group and 1 out of the group to make balanced schedules, or schedules balanced. An audiobook version of the rules? We could do that, maybe. I'm not promising anything, but
you can definitely find a way to get it read to you, bud. If that's your question, we'll hire the chance to give you a nighttime reading. Do you account for people who are basically one-trick players, and how does that affect them in Fearless? Do you get a lower ranking and all? No, but it's a good way to maybe use you strategically. Use you in the first game, or possibly on the side that you want to try to grab them. Maybe if we have a blue side game, okay, let's drop our OTP into there. Let's make sure we can get them that big player. Let's try to play around that in one of our games and have them do really well, and then maybe sub out if you're on the red side. Because you don't think you'll be able to snag it early. So it could be a good use of that. It also could just be getting banned every game. We know that people do really good scouting. How soon is soon? Soon. TM.
Blackout, we do not have maximum point values for divisions for teams. The things we talked about earlier is just for your individual player. Nice cabinet. Oh, thank you. I usually blur my background, but the camera was really out of focus when I was trying to blur it on Discord for some reason. So had to go on.
All right, I got Vegas.
Unblurred.
I'll do Vegas. Vegas. If 1,000 teams apply, I will first off.
We'll read all of them.
Read every single one of them.
We all read all of them,
and then we'll figure out some type of system where we'll separate you into factions. And we'll have specific captains lead specific factions of the LBLCS, and probably do some type of world takeover at some point. So there is a chance my team can't play. Your team can always play. Can your team always play in the LBLCS? Maybe, maybe not. That's where you can maybe say, oh, maybe not. I would say, since you're here and you're listening and you're getting it right from the horse's mouth, the application process matters when you apply. Like, write a real response. Take your time. Actually let us know, especially if you're a new team, because we do want to have, we want always the influx of some amount of new teams. We don't want it to be so overloaded that people that have played here for a long time feel shafted, but we do want new people to be able to experience the spotlight and have fun on this stage. So we do take them, but that application process matters so much.
Yeah, and I'll say it here on stream for everyone watching, and we'll say it a bunch of other times when things get released. The LBLCS never has really been a first come, first serve kind of application process. The application will be released and it'll be open for, usually it's like 2 weeks. It does not matter if you submit your team 5 seconds after I hit publish, because I know some of you are like psychos who really are on top of things, and that's great. And it won't matter if you submit 1 minute before the deadline. As you know, many of you are college students or recent college students, like get that too. We read every single application just like we read every single one of your feedback forms. And so that has way more to do with the teams that get accepted. And it gets harder for us, because as the LBLCS becomes more popular, more teams apply and more applications. We haven't gotten 1,000 yet, but we get a fair number.
I'm going to skip to Angels and articulate the fact that I don't understand it to its full capacity that I need to respond. Because Angels said, is point cap going to be a ceiling and floor, or just hard ceiling at the top? If you mean specific players, it's just going to be a ceiling at the top. But if you mean team, there is no cap, but there is a range that we don't know yet until all teams apply, because that's when we sort them into the groups from there.
Right. And again, I know we talked about it for like a very long time and explained sort of like how things worked, how things used to work. But this is really only kind of taking off the very few edge cases that, we've seen. We're talking maybe 2 or 3 players for all like 1,000 players that play in the LBLCS. So it does not affect at all how you form your teams now. Watching the free agent showcase, you won't have to think about it all. Applying to the LBLCS, you won't have to think about it at all. All it does is sort of, guarantees the very edge of like, I'm an economy or whatever the lowest division ends up being, and I am, let's say like I'm gold 1, like I will not be playing against a Masters player in my division, even if that Masters player is playing with 6 other silver players that would bring their sort of average way down.
Right. There are those built-in safety nets to protect people that are playing in a closer, tighter-knit rank discrepancy. Hey guys, former jungle from Team Popo and Financial, are you guys implementing a format where everyone has to play on a specific day of the week? No, we are not implementing that. That was not voted for. I believe it was 76 to 24, the percentages, just so you're aware. Like, it was very much not voted for. People really like scheduling. I know it's tough for other people, and it can be tough at times for others, and we're sorry about that. It does service the majority in this instance, and that is the reason why we're still sticking with you guys schedule your own. However, those tickets for playoff games, those are still going to be scheduled with us having full transparency and vision so that we can help if there is an issue. They can $8 in my couch. Can I have that cabinet right now? You're talking Praetorian. I'm going to say no. €8. I'm going to say maybe. He'll get back to you. That's slightly more than $8. So he'll have a conversation.
Just one quick thing about the scheduling. We definitely understand that scheduling sometimes is frustrating. Most other amateur leagues in the scene have scheduled days to play on, and so we want to be the only, sort of the outlet for everyone. Let's say you had something on a Monday night, and a lot of leagues play on Monday or Tuesday nights, and you just can't play any of the games. And so we want to be someplace where players who still want to play, somewhat organized League of Legends can play in an organized league. We do definitely get that scheduling with some teams is difficult sometimes. That teams are unwilling to use their subs, or they're just not free that many days. And so we ask that if you run into scheduling issues, that you open a ticket and usually we ask both captains for all of their communications, and we read through it, and we try our best to come to an agreeable solution. The other thing about the LBLCS is that we do build in some time at the end of every season as a makeup week if you haven't played your games then. Some teams are willing to play multiple matches in a week if a certain week doesn't work out as well for them or for you.
We're going to have a high five for you later, him the guy. I'll never take you out to dinner unless you fly to me, Sammy. I'm not flying to you. Blackout. We are going to release that very soon. So that'll be out very, very shortly for you. You're asking the max for individual players in each tier. That's going to be out very soon. You'll be able to see that. And that is based mostly off recommendations that we got inside of applications. When do apps open? Soon. TM. I believe that's our current answer. Although you actually have a day in mind. And I think, did we share it or no? Praetorian. The day that applications actually open. We have a day in mind. No. We didn't share yet.
We have not shared that yet.
And I think that depends on the intensity of the free agent showcase too, a little bit, just with us making sure that people are seen before apps open and all this other stuff like that. So it's still a little bit of there's an idea, but not a hard lock. But rules very, very soon.
Less Force $100. You sent Less Force $100 on PayPal?
That's a mistake. If we don't, do I get a refund?
I bought Less Force ice cream.
Did you?
Last week. Maybe that means I'll get into
What kind of ice cream did Less Force get? Or did you get Less Force?
I don't remember. Less Force, what kind of ice cream did you get?
Jumping down to... There's a lot of things I have to read over here. Right.
Yeah. I trade an LTA spot for an LBLCS spot. Easy. Sure.
Okay, sure. Looking for more questions. New org trying to get into the into LBLCS. Do you allow multiple teams from a single? Absolutely, we allow multiple teams from an org in. That does happen. We've had teams have 3 teams in from organizations. We've had teams only get one of theirs in. We've had teams or organizations rather get none of their teams in. So that application process just matters a lot. And something I said a little bit earlier in this stream was like, if you're a brand new team or somebody that's never played here before, make sure that you really take the application process seriously so that we can try to evaluate you to the best of the ability. Because like I said, we're only taking like about 80 teams. So
right, being part of an org does not inherently help your application to get in.
It doesn't help. It doesn't make it more negative in any way. It's just if you, especially like when you're doing that, be like here we are. This is all about us. I'm answering every question to the best of my ability. Stuff like that.
Vega, I don't have my waffle maker set up. So I'm sorry to disappoint.
I will send you a image of the next time I'm eating a waffle, though. You have my word, Vega.
Yeah. We'll send it in home gardening chat.
Home gardening, right to you.
Keep the stuff coming in the home and gardening chat. I've really enjoyed
it's a great chat.
Everyone's submissions lately. Damn, Less Force is getting lots of PayPals.
Yeah, what the hell? What is this shit about?
Yeah.
What? Why is he getting so much? What on earth? He needs it. It's fine. He eats a lot of ice cream, as I heard. Wait, I just saw one that I want to address. Thank you for the follow, Pickle Hater. Thank you for Austin is your dad. Austin is your dad. Thank you for SNG Soul, and thank you to Nava for the follows there.
Healy Wheelie, it has always been something in the LBLCS that the captain of a team is a player on the team. Now, it's not to say that they have to play every week, but they have to be like a registered player on the team. We've had lots of issues with like managers or schedulers or coaches who just like
try to take on the scheduling of multiple teams, and then it becomes a disaster, and people are confused.
I know that's somewhat counterintuitive. You would think that the scheduler is good at scheduling, but we often find if they're not a player on the team, they're like way less invested in making sure those kinds of things happen, especially because the LBLCS is one of the few amateurs that requires you to settle on a time with another team. And so if the person scheduling is also playing in the match, like obviously they have to know when they're available to play. Can you volunteer at the LBLCS? That is an amazing question. Yes, everything that the LBLCS does is volunteer work. We have a group of amazing people who dedicate a lot of their time to ensuring that everything runs smoothly for people. If you check the most, actually, I don't know if I would say the most recent, but a very recent announcement.
There's an announcement post recently about it.
There's a quick little thing to fill out if you're interested in helping. I'm looking through all of those probably this weekend. So if you applied and didn't hear anything yet, don't feel worried. No one's heard anything yet. I'll do that soon.
Martin, I have the answer for yours. It's unknown. The true answer is it is unknown, but last season's our economy was 10 points to 26 points. Commercial, which is the next highest, was 27 to 36 points. Financial ended up being technically 32 to 48. And then both executive and CEO worked slightly differently. They were split up a little bit based on Masters players and total ranks there. But that is not to say that those are the repeating ranks at all. Those are just a general like strength profile for you.
I mean, the points for each individual evaluated rank, they do change a little bit every season.
Yeah.
But certainly now, like obviously the ranges for each division also vary quite a lot. So really, like no one should be worrying about points when they're applying to the LBLCS. Just apply with who you'd like to apply for, and we'll handle everything else. Let's see.
Looks like
Sammy hasn't heard anything on their app. Yep.
What's their questions? You get a plane ride yet, Sammy? Sammy, I have just the place I'm going to take you if you come here.
So, anyways, we didn't want to keep people too long. We're glad you all tuned into this. It's the first time we're doing this, and obviously you can tell us if it sucked or if it went really well, or if there's maybe we'll do some sort of like mailbag episode at some point, and we'll certainly try to do more of this kind of communication with you about how things are going, the things we're thinking about, things you're thinking about, and how we're working every day to make the LBLCS a really great place for everyone to play in. So we appreciate all of you. And yeah, we hope to see you. I think our next stream will be at on Sunday, this upcoming Sunday for the free agent showcase. Memer6, yeah, if you have some great stickers you'd like to send in, feel free to send them in.
Send them in. We'll put them up.
It's not that we're like going out of our way to not add stickers. We probably just don't.
You know what we should do? We should have an area where just Memer sticks can submit it, and then it'll be a community vote on whether or not it's added. So we
could have those votes in community.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. So Memer sticks, get to work, bud. Come on. All right, well, we will see you guys Sunday, hopefully, and if not, we'll see you guys later. Make sure to keep an eye out for the rules and apps opening up in the near future. And even though you just listened to this, probably, maybe read the rules, And
we'll send sort of the notes from this conversation in a written form as well.
Yeah. All right. Deuces.
Okay. Yep.